I finally mustered the courage to ask my fiancée if she'd ever consider adding another person to our intimate moments. Bringing it up was the biggest mistake of my life. Looking back, I shouldn't have done it on our anniversary of all days, but I did. And once the words were out, there was no taking them back. It was around this time last year when she smiled at me and said, "Happy anniversary, love. I have a surprise for you." I chuckled, responding, "It's a threesome, isn't it?" She raised an eyebrow, both amused and slightly taken aback. She knew I wasn't joking. This wasn't the first time I'd mentioned it. In hindsight, I realize now that an anniversary dinner wasn't the best time to bring it up again. She had always been hesitant about the idea, never quite shutting it down, but never showing enthusiasm either. Later that evening, when she returned from work, she greeted me with a sly grin. "You were right before. My surprise is a threesome," she teased. I stared at her, shocked. "You're joking." She shook her head. "Nope. Get dressed. We're going out." My heart started pounding. This was actually happening. I darted into the bedroom, scrambling to figure out what someone even brings to something like this. I searched through drawers for anything remotely appropriate, but quickly realized we hadn't used condoms in years. Instead, I settled for some cologne and my best boxer briefs. As I stood by the door, buzzing with anticipation, she walked up with an unusually large bag slung over her shoulder. I grinned. "What's in there?" "You'll see soon enough," she said, her voice playfully mysterious. She climbed into the car as I started the engine. "Where are we going?" I asked. "The hotel," she said, inputting the address into the GPS. That should have been my first clue. The place she picked wasn't exactly romantic, but I was too distracted by my own excitement to read into it. 20 minutes later, we arrived. She checked in, and I followed her up the stairs. As she pushed open the door, I half expected to see someone already waiting. Some woman she had chosen for us, sprawled out on the bed, but the room was empty. Just a dimly lit, slightly run-down hotel suite. She must have caught my skeptical expression. "Don't judge a book by its cover," she said, setting her bag down. "For what we're doing, all that matters is the bed. She'll be here any minute now." Those words sent a fresh wave of adrenaline through me. I rushed to the bathroom to splash some water on my face, steadying myself for what was about to unfold. When I stepped back out, our guest had arrived. Sitting on the edge of the bed in delicate black lace was a brunette, her lips pressed against my fiancé's in a slow, deliberate kiss. As soon as I entered, they both turned to face me. I smirked. "Oh, don't stop on my account." My fiancée backed away, settling into a chair by the bed. "You two start," she said, crossing her legs with an amused expression. "I just want to watch." My heart hammered in my chest. After all the fantasizing, I wasn't sure if it'd even be able to function. The brunette took my hand, guiding me to the bed. She straddled me, her lips brushing mine, her fingers tracing slow patterns over my chest. Somewhere in the background, I could sense my fiancée moving around the room, but my attention was fully on the woman in front of me. Then, suddenly, I caught the faintest scent of something unfamiliar, something off. Before I could process it, the woman smiled at me in a way that sent chills down my spine. For a brief moment, everything else disappeared, except for the growing unease creeping up my spine. I wasn't sure if it was the rush of adrenaline, the novelty of the moment, or the unexpected chemistry between the three of us, but every second felt like a revelation. My fiancée, who had initially said she just wanted to watch, eventually joined in, and at that moment, everything felt surreal. It was as if we were completely in sync, anticipating each other's movements without hesitation. I had never seen her this free, this completely lost in the moment. When it was all over, we collapsed onto the bed, exhausted. The hotel room was quiet, except for the soft hum of the television playing in the background, something none of us even remembered turning on. The brunette woman gathered her belongings, flashed a playful smile, and kissed both of us on the cheek before leaving. As soon as the door shut, I turned to my fiancée, still catching my breath. "That was unbelievable," I said. She grinned, her eyes shimmering with an energy I had never seen before. "Even better than I imagined," she murmured. We took our time getting dressed, letting the moment linger. I felt like I had just crossed something off my bucket list, something I never thought I'd experience. The drive home was quiet, but not awkward. It was the kind of silence where no words were needed. I held her hand the entire way, feeling more connected to her than ever before. By the time we got home, it was late. night. We showered together, exchanging playful glances, and finally climbed into bed. Just as I reached for the bedside lamp to turn it off, she shifted beside me. "I have a special request," she said, hesitating slightly. I smirked, intrigued. "Anything, love." She took a deep breath before speaking. "I want to do it again, but this time with someone else." I frowned, confused. "Someone else?" "Yes," she whispered, biting her lip. "But not another woman." My stomach twisted. The air in the room suddenly felt heavier. My entire body tensed before I even fully processed what she had just said. "What do you mean?" I asked, an uneasy feeling settling in my chest. She looked away for a second, as if gathering the courage to continue. "I want to try it with another man." The shock hit me like a punch to the gut. A wave of cold rushed over me. Just moments ago, my heart had been racing with excitement. Now, it pounded for a completely different reason. "Wait, what?" She sighed, squeezing my hand. "You got to experience something new tonight, and it was incredible. I want to know what that would be like for me. I want to feel what it's like from the other perspective." My mind was spinning. I didn't know how to react. Just moments ago, everything had felt perfect, like we had unlocked a new level in our relationship. But now it felt like the ground beneath me was cracking. "You're serious?" I asked, hoping, praying that she was joking, but she wasn't. Her expression was steady, unwavering. "Yes," she said softly. "I want to experience it, and I want you there with me, just like I was tonight." A knot tightened in my stomach. "You want me to watch, or?" She shrugged. "Whatever you're comfortable with." "Well, yes, I want you there." I stared at her, struggling to wrap my mind around what she was saying. My pulse thudded in my ears. "You want to be with another man after what we just did?" She held onto my fingers, her touch gentle, almost pleading. "It's not about wanting someone else. It's about the experience. You got yours, and I loved sharing that with you. Now, I want the same for me." I slowly sat up. My head was spinning. My throat felt dry. Without a word, I stood and walked to the bathroom, gripping the sink as I tried to steady my breathing. I stared at my reflection in the mirror. My own eyes looked back at me, clouded with turmoil. What was I supposed to say? What was I supposed to do? Minutes passed before I finally returned to the bedroom. She was still sitting on the bed, watching me with expectation. "So?" she asked. I let out a hollow laugh. "So, what? Do you really think this is fair?" Her brow furrowed. "You wanted to be with another woman, and I agreed. Why is this any different?" I ran a hand down my face, trying to suppress the frustration rising inside me. "Because I never wanted to see another man touching you." She crossed her arms. "And you think I wanted to see you with another woman?" Her voice was calm but firm. "I did it because I love you, because I wanted to make you happy." Silence filled the room. She walked over to me and placed a hand on my chest. "Just think about it," she whispered. "I'm only asking for what you asked of me." I pulled away slightly, unable to meet her gaze. I turned and left the room. I spent the entire night on the couch, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. The next morning, she acted like nothing had happened. She kissed me, made coffee, talked about her plans for the day. But I couldn't look at her the same way anymore. Something had shifted. Something inside me had cracked. And the worst part, I had a feeling that no matter what I decided, there was no turning back. She walked into the living room and stopped when she saw me sitting on the couch. Her expression was calm, almost indifferent. "Did you sleep here?" she asked, as if nothing had happened. I took a slow breath before answering. "Yeah." She sat beside me, reaching for my hand. Her touch, once warm and familiar, now felt foreign. "Look, love, I know what I asked caught you off guard, but we don't have to make it a big deal. We can talk about it." I finally looked at her. My eyes were heavy, not just from exhaustion, but from the storm raging inside me. "Do you really not see the problem with this?" I asked, forcing my voice to stay steady. She sighed, as if she'd expected this reaction. "You're acting like I cheated on you, like I did something wrong. All I did was tell you what I wanted, just like you did. What's the difference?" My chest tightened at the comparison. "The difference," I let out a humorless chuckle, "is that I never asked you to do something that would hurt you. When I brought up the idea of a threesome, I knew it was something we could share, something that wouldn't break us. And you agreed. But this, what you're asking me now, is completely different." She tilted her head slightly, her eyes narrowing. "Different because I'm a woman, and you're a man? Because you think only men should get to have these experiences?" I stood up, running my hands through my hair, trying to think straight. "No, it's different because I can't stand the thought of another man touching you. It doesn't excite me. It doesn't make me happy. In fact, just thinking about it makes me sick." She frowned. "So, what? I was supposed to feel the same way when I saw you with another woman." I turned to her, frustration rising in my voice. "It's not the same. You were there with me. It was was something we did together. But now you want to bring a man into this. You want me to sit there and watch while another guy touches you, and you expect me to be fine with that? She studied me for a moment, then exhaled sharply. You're being a hypocrite. I scoffed, shaking my head. A hypocrite? Yes, she said firmly. You wanted to be with another woman, and I let it happen. But now, when I ask for something, suddenly, it's a problem? That says a lot about you. You're twisting everything, I snapped. I love you, but what you're asking isn't just something that makes me uncomfortable. It's something that would break me. I can't watch you with another man, not after everything we've built together. She crossed her arms, frustration evident in her posture. So you get to decide what's fair and what isn't. It's not about fairness. It's about respect, I said, my voice tight with emotion. I respected you. I respected your boundaries. I never forced you into something that would hurt you. But now, here you are, asking me to do exactly that. She stayed silent for a moment. For a second, I thought she might finally understand, that maybe Shed realized how much this was hurting me. But then she took a deep breath and said, if it were the other way around, you'd expect me to be okay with it. A bitter taste filled my mouth. So, what happens if I don't agree? Are you going to do it anyway? I asked, looking her directly in the eye. She hesitated, biting her lip, before finally whispering, I don't know, but I do know that if you really loved me, you'd at least think about it. Something inside me snapped. You think my love for you should be measured by how much pain I'm willing to endure. My voice was barely above a whisper, but the weight of the words hung between us. She didn't respond. She just looked at me, her face unreadable. And in that moment, I realized something. I didn't recognize the person sitting in front of me anymore. I don't think I can do this, I said quietly, the words leaving my lips before I even had a chance to process them. Her eyes widened. What? I met her gaze, my chest heavy with something I couldn't quite name. I can't be with someone who thinks love is a test of how much one person can tolerate. Silence. She opened her mouth to say something, but stopped herself, like she knew that nothing she said would change how I felt. I stood up and walked to the bedroom to pack my things. My hands were shaking, my mind spinning. Deep down, I wanted her to stop me. I wanted her to realize she was wrong, to tell me she regretted it. But she didn't. She just sat there, silent, and that told me everything I needed to know. By the time I walked back into the living room, suitcase in hand, the weight in my chest was suffocating. She looked at me one last time, her expression unreadable. I hesitated. I wanted to say something, to find the right words, but there were none. So I turned and walked out the door. I knew the conversation we had wouldn't just vanish from my thoughts. I needed a second opinion, someone, anyone, to validate what I was feeling. Without thinking too much, I grabbed my phone, opened Reddit, and made an anonymous post. My partner and I recently had an experience with another woman. It was something I had always wanted, and she agreed. Everything went well, but now she is asked to have the same experience with another man. She wants me to be there, watching or participating. I told her it makes me uncomfortable, that I don't want to, but she thinks I'm being a hypocrite because I had my chance, and now she wants hers. Am I wrong for not wanting this? Am I being unfair? I posted it and set my phone down. I stared at the wall, waiting for responses, believing that at least some people would understand my side. But when I opened the app a few minutes later, the comments had already started flooding in, and most of them weren't on my side. Yes, you're a hypocrite. You wanted another woman, but now that it's her turn, you refuse. If the roles were reversed and she had refused the threesome, you'd probably call her selfish. You had your fun, and now you want to deny her the same thing. Grow up. She did it to make you happy, and now you should do the same. With every comment I read, my frustration grew. Was I really the villain in this story? How could no one see the difference? How could no one understand that this wasn't just about fairness, but about the fact that to me, this wasn't just uncomfortable, it was devastating. One comment in particular got under my skin. If you had said no to the threesome from the start, you'd have an argument, but you wanted it, you insisted, and she agreed. Now that it's her turn, you say no. That's not love, that's control. My stomach twisted. I knew it wasn't about control. I knew I wasn't saying no just to be selfish. But seeing so many people judge me so harshly made me question if I had really been fair. I put my phone away, rubbing my face with both hands. I needed clarity, and the only person who could give me that was her. I got up and walked back to the bedroom. She was sitting on the bed, scrolling through her phone, barely acknowledging me. When she finally looked up, there was no guilt in her expression, just a calm, almost expectant look. We need to talk, I said, keeping my voice steady. She put her phone down down. About what? She asked, like she already knew. I sat on the edge of the bed, my hands clasped together. I made an anonymous post about what happened, I admitted. I asked if I was wrong for not wanting this. She raised an eyebrow. And what did they say? I swallowed. That I'm a hypocrite. That if I accepted a threesome with another woman, I should accept this with another man. That them being unfair. She nodded slowly, like she wasn't surprised. And now? I exhaled, feeling the weight of every word before saying it. I still don't want this, but I need to understand better. Her eyes lit up for a moment. Maybe with hope, maybe with relief. What do you want to know? I hesitated, then asked the one question I was afraid of. Do you already have someone in mind? Her silence was deafening. 1 second. 2, then she looked away, biting her lip. You do, I said, my chest tightening. She sighed, shifting uncomfortably. It's not what you think. Then explain it, I said, my patience wearing thin. She took a deep breath, crossing her arms. I had someone in mind in case you agreed. I didn't want to bring it up before knowing where you stood. Who? I asked, my voice colder than I expected. She hesitated again. A friend of mine. A sharp, nauseating feeling hit me. A friend? I repeated, barely able to process it. She nodded. Someone I trust. Someone who understands boundaries. I stood up, my head spinning. How long have you been thinking about this? She ran a hand over her face, sighing. Since before our threesome. A chill ran through me. You wanted this even before we brought another woman into our relationship? She closed her eyes briefly, then nodded. Yes, but I knew you'd never agree if I asked first. I felt my heart sink. All this time, all of this, and she had already planned it in her head. So you only agreed to the threesome because you wanted to convince me afterward? She met my gaze, unflinching. I agreed because I love you and wanted you to have that experience. But yes, deep down, I also hoped it would help you understand my side. The room felt suffocating. My chest burned. My throat was tight. I didn't know what was worse. The fact that she already had someone in mind, or the realization that the threesome I thought was about us had never really been about us at all. I had never really had a choice. That much was clear now. No matter how much I tried to convince myself otherwise, this had always been a one-way street. The day arrived. I had spent the entire week trying to push it out of my mind, telling myself that maybe I could get through this somehow. But deep down, I knew the truth. Nothing could prepare me for what was about to happen. From the moment I woke up, my stomach was in knots. I couldn't eat. I couldn't think. My mind kept circling back to that conversation, her confession, how she had already picked someone, a friend, someone she trusted. She was excited. She didn't even try to hide it. I watched her as she got ready, taking extra care with her makeup, choosing her lingerie more deliberately than usual. Every little detail was intentional. I wanted to say something, to ask if she really couldn't see what this was doing to me. But every time I opened my mouth, I stopped myself. Was it fear? Was it shame? Or was it the simple, crushing realization that nothing I said would change her mind? So I just sat there, watching as she prepared herself for something that clearly meant more to her than anything we had ever done together. Then the doorbell rang. My throat went dry. My heart pounded. She glanced at me in the mirror and smiled. Everything's going to be fine, she said, like she was reassuring a child. I didn't respond. She walked to the door and opened it. And then I saw him. This wasn't an ordinary man. That was my first thought. He was tall, broad-shouldered, his physique sculpted like a statue. He wasn't just attractive, he was imposing, a presence that demanded attention. And my wife, she looked at him like he was everything she had ever wanted but never admitted. I should have stopped it right then and there. I should have stood up and said, enough. But I didn't. I froze. I was trapped between the pride of not wanting to admit how much this was destroying me and the fear that if I spoke, she would look at me with disappointment. Weak. That's what I was. And that weakness kept me in place. The two of them walked past me as if I were just another piece of furniture in the room. The guy smiled and extended his hand. Nice to meet you, man. I forced myself to nod, my voice barely working. Yeah, you too. I wanted to laugh at the absurdity of it. Instead, I sat there in silence. They disappeared into the bedroom. She didn't even look back. I stared at the wall, trying to convince myself that if I drowned out the sounds, if I turned on the TV, put in headphones, distracted myself, it wouldn't be as bad. But then, I heard it. I heard things I had never heard before. I heard my wife like I had never heard her before, and it shattered me. Every gasp, every moan, every sound that drifted through the walls was a fresh wound, cutting deeper and deeper. My hands gripped my head as I sat there, suffocating under the weight of my own choices. Then came the final blow. Her voice. "Oh my God, you're huge." My breath stopped. My entire body went numb. I had already known. I had seen him. I wasn't blind. But hearing her say it out loud, killed something inside me. I wasn't enough. I never was. And now I knew it. I don't know how long I sat there, dying inside. Time became meaningless. Eventually, the sound stopped. And then, laughter. They were talking, casually, comfortably, like nothing had happened, like I didn't exist. Minutes later, they emerged. She was glowing, radiant in a way I had never seen before. The guy clapped me on the shoulder as he walked past, grinning. "Thanks, man. That was amazing." I couldn't respond. I didn't even look at him. The door closed behind him. And then came the worst part. She turned to me and smiled. "Babe, I had no idea it could be like that." She said it with awe, with happiness, like she expected me to be happy for her, like everything was fine. But nothing was fine. I stood there, staring at her, searching her face for something, anything, that would tell me I had imagined all of this, that it hadn't meant as much to her as it seemed. But I found nothing. All I saw was a woman completely, utterly satisfied. The silence between us was suffocating. She took a step toward me. "Babe," I stepped back. No, my voice was low, but firm, filled with a finality I hadn't expected. She frowned, confused. "What's wrong?" That was it. That was the breaking point. I let out a hollow laugh. "What's wrong?" She blinked, as if trying to process my reaction. "What happened tonight wasn't right," I said, my chest burning. "This should have never happened." She crossed her arms, but we both agreed to it. "No," I shot back. "You agreed to it. You made this decision. You pressured me into accepting it." She rolled her eyes. "You knew this could happen. You insisted on bringing another woman into our bed, and I accepted it." Her words echoed in the space between us. And in that moment, I realized something. There was no us anymore. Something had broken, and I wasn't sure it could ever be fixed. I clenched my fists, my patience wearing thin. "So now that it's something you want, it's suddenly different?" She crossed her arms, her tone defensive. "How is this any different? Because you're a man and I'm a woman? Because only you get to have your fantasies fulfilled?" I shook my head, my frustration boiling over. "Do you seriously think that's the issue?" She let out a sigh, exasperated. "Then what is the issue?" "The issue," I said through gritted teeth, "is that this was never about us. You never wanted to explore anything together. You wanted him. You already had him in mind before this even became a discussion. This wasn't about equality or trust. It was about you getting what you wanted, no matter the cost." Her face twitched, just for a second. I had struck a nerve, but instead of admitting it, she doubled down. "That's not true." "Oh, really?" I scoffed. "Then tell me, at any point in all of this, did you even think about me? Did you stop, even once, to consider what this would do to me?" I sat there, in that living room, listening to you say things you've never said to me, watching you react in ways you've never reacted with me. She bit her lip, her eyes darting away. It was something new, something different. Of course, it felt intense. "Different," I repeated, my voice laced with bitterness. "This wasn't just different. It was better for you. So much better that I didn't even exist in that moment, did I?" She didn't answer. I exhaled sharply. "You don't even see it, do you? You don't even realize what you've done. You broke me." She rolled her eyes. "You're overreacting." That was it. That was the final straw. Overreacting? I let out a hollow laugh. "You destroyed everything we built. You humiliated me in the worst way possible. And the one overreacting?" She gave me a cold stare. "I didn't cheat on you." I laughed again, but there was no humor in it. "Oh, really? Then tell me, what was this?" "It was an experience," she insisted. "Something within our relationship. If I had done this behind your back, then it would have been cheating." I stared at her, stunned by her audacity. "Oh, I see. So if I tell you I'm going to stab you before I do it, does that mean it's not murder?" She scoffed, folding her arms. "You're twisting everything." "No, I'm not." My voice was steel now. "You want to know the difference? In our threesome, I was still with you. I wanted an experience that we could share. I didn't care about another woman. I cared about us. But you weren't doing this for us. You only agreed to it because you already knew what you wanted for yourself." Her lips parted, ready to argue, but she stopped because she knew I was right. She had wanted this long before she had ever suggested anything to me, and that was what hurt the most. I took a deep breath. breath, the weight of my next words settling in my chest. I can't stay here. Her eyes widened. What? I swallowed hard, my voice hollow. I can't be with someone who did this to me, who went through all of this, and doesn't even regret it. Who had the nerve to smile at me afterward, as if I should just accept it. Don't be ridiculous, she snapped, her voice shifting, desperation creeping in now. You're really going to throw everything away over this? I shook my head. You threw it away the moment you decided I wasn't enough. She stared at me, searching my face for something, some hesitation, some doubt, but there was nothing left. Babe, please, she said, her voice softer now. Let's talk about this. Let's think it through. I love you. I looked at her one last time and realized something terrifying. I didn't love her anymore. Not after what had happened. Not after seeing her glow for another man. Goodbye. Her lips parted as if to speak, but no words came out. I grabbed my things and walked out of the home that had once been mine, never looking back. I didn't let myself hesitate. Every step I took felt like closing an entire chapter of my life. But the worst part, I didn't know if it'd ever be able to start again. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit that button and turn on notifications so you never miss more shocking real-life stories like this. See you in the next one.